Hello comrades, you're watching RedIvanAirsoft, and today we'll talk about the uniforms and equipment of the Ukrainian Peacekeepers in Bosnia. The participation of the Ukrainian armed forces in the peacekeeping operation began with adoption of the resolution by Verkhoglad of Ukraine on July 3rd of 1992. The formation of the 240th separate special battalion began on the basis of the 93rd Guards Motor Rifle Division, and on July 29 of 1992 the first units of the 240th separate special battalion of the UN peacekeeping troops, also known as Comrades 1, arrived in Sarajevo to replace the Canadian battalion. The battalion was stationed in three demilitarized zones: Sarajevo, Muslim enclave Zepa, where the 2nd Special Company was located, Muslim enclave Garajde, where 3rd Special Company was stationed, and also reinforced platoon of the 1st Company was located in village of Ilija. The 60th Separate Special Battalion, also known as Comrades 2, arrived in Sarajevo on April 19 of 1994. Ukrainian peacekeepers during their service often were under fire of both sides of the conflict.
Последних отвез чекпоинт и попал в перестрелку. Мусульманская сторона открыла огонь и начали отвечать сербы. Было страшно.
The event that happened in the Muslim enclave Zepa in the summer of 1995 was the apogee. Zepa was completely blocked by the Serbian troops. Serbs had declared that all men in the age between 17 and 65 will be detained as the prisoners of war. This is how this event was described by the hero of Ukraine, Colonel Nikolai Verkhoglad, who arrived in Zepa in the summer of 1995 for coordination of actions between the warring parties on the evacuation of the civilians from Zepa. When in Zepa they found out about the upcoming detentions of men, panic began in town. The Muslim populations blocked our base in Zepa, and under these conditions I had to organize the evacuation of the population and withdraw the personnel of the 2nd Company from the enclave without losses. The Serbs threatened to shoot our peacekeepers if the aviation will start bombing, and Muslims also did not hide their intentions and openly told our people, if you do not protect us, we will destroy you. And this is what another Ukrainian peacekeeper, Igor Shvedenko, told about those events. We believed that Serbs could attack us to destroy or to force us to leave, and the Muslim military to take our weapon. At the base at school, we blocked all the openings with the sandbags, installed the machine gun. It is worth noting that Colonel Verkhoglad participated in negotiations with the Serb army general Ratko Mladic and the leader of the Bosnian Muslims in Zepa, Colonel Palic. Normally such formal negotiations were conducted in English, but that time they were in Russian. Earlier, Colonel Verkhoglad had enough opportunities to make sure that both Mladic and Palic knew Russian well enough.
Это генерал Mladic. Давайте мне Палича.
The war, I was saying, turning to Mladic, will someday end. And then, mark my words, the politicians will betray you. And so it later turned out. And to Palic, I had something to say. Now the units of your army blockaded a Ukrainian company in Garajde. They are shelling our base. And despite this, I will evacuate the civilians of Zepa. In addition, we have already handed over to them all the food that I brought for the 2nd Company. And among the people who are assisted by Comrades, there are probably families of those soldiers who are now shooting at Ukrainian peacekeepers. According to the common sense, this is probably wrong, but such is my peacekeeping logic. If I wasn't the representative of the UN, we would speak in a completely different way, Mr. Palic. It was not an easy conversation. At the end, Mladic leaned back in his chair, looked at me carefully and said, "Colonel, you are a good soldier. No need to get excited. I think we'll find the right solution." Now it is finally time to discuss uniforms. I just wanted to convey the situation of the Ukrainian peacekeepers in Bosnia and share this heroic act of the Colonel Verkhoglad and other Ukrainian peacekeepers who helped to evacuate the civilians of the enclave Zepa without losses. So let's begin with Insignias. Since the emblems of the Ukrainian armed forces were officially approved only on the April 2nd of 1994 by the Presidential Decree number 128, then in 1992 a sleeve emblem of belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces was created exclusively for 240th Separate Special Battalion. It was based on the prototype of the emblem of the Soviet armed forces developed in 1989. These emblems were produced by different companies and therefore there were different variations of it. Starting from 1994, theoretically these emblems were to be replaced by the crimson emblems of Ukrainian ground troops, but in practice round emblems continued to be used, as well as crimson emblems for ground troops and even blue emblems for the airborne troops. On this picture you see Ukrainian peacekeeper wearing uniform in the camouflage called Barvikha, which was developed in the USSR, but more common in the Russian armed forces. He also has a light blue striped airborne Telnyashka and Ukrainian airborne emblem, while the rest of the Ukrainian peacekeepers on this picture are wearing uniforms in the Soviet camouflage pattern called Butan with round emblems. Do not confuse this Soviet Butan camo with Ukrainian Dubok camouflage that was produced only since 1997, and with some other Ukrainian Butan-based patterns. Uniforms in the original Soviet Butan pattern was produced in Ukraine from fabric imported from Russia until 1997. Also in hands of this cute US servicewoman, you can see the Russian Armed Forces emblem and Ukrainian Round Armed Forces emblem. Ukrainian flag. Early versions of this flag were made by Ukrainian peacekeepers on their own, but later the production of the factory-made flags was started. There were few different versions of them, but overall they are pretty similar. Usually on the chest peacekeepers had a name tape with first name initial and the last name written in Latin alphabet. However, there are a lot of pictures without them. The UN emblem was worn on the right sleeve. The early emblems were only in English, while the later versions were in both English and French languages. Also, the emblem was often sewn onto the right pocket as a patch without a bandage. Hats. And since the peacekeepers are often called blue helmets, at least in my language, we'll begin our conversation with blue helmets. It was SSH-60 and SSH-68 helmets painted blue with UN symbols and UN abbreviation on them. Funny fact, since there are not a lot of people who knew English in Russian and Ukrainian armed forces that days, you could see abbreviation UH instead of UN on the helmets of both armies quite often. It is because Russian or Ukrainian N is the same as English H. Blue beret. There are several ways of wearing them. Soviet way, where you have your badge in the center. Second option is where you have your badge above your eye. And even some weird ways like the watermelon seller's hat. As a less formal hat, blue UN cap was used, mostly by officers. Also peacekeepers, mostly officers, could be seen wearing field caps in Butan camouflage. Field caps were worn with Ukrainian Army badge, which is based on the Soviet Army badge and is made of some kind of metal. For some reason, Ukrainian peacekeepers in Bosnia wore naval Telnyashkas with dark blue stripes. I'm not sure why, since 240 separate special battalion based on the ground unit, but I just think that they look cool with UN symbolic. Also, don't forget that as we saw on the pictures earlier, the light blue airborne Telnyashkas also could be seen. Uniforms. At the beginning, one-ton M88 uniform, so-called Afghanka, was often used, but the main uniform of the Ukrainian peacekeepers in Bosnia was M88 uniform in the Butan camouflage pattern. This camouflage pattern appeared in Soviet Army in around 1984, and because of this, it was nicknamed VSR-84. Also, peacekeepers wearing M88 uniform in Barvikha camouflage pattern can be seen. Barvikha is another camouflage pattern developed in USSR, and it could be seen in some quantities in the Ukrainian armed forces, but it is more common to be seen in Russian armed forces, where it was officially adopted. There were peacekeepers wearing Transnistrian Butan and Berezka masking coveralls. There were two types of belts in usage: Soviet officers' brown leather belt and interesting Ukrainian butterfly buckle belts based on the belts from the Soviet experimental field equipment of the 1991. Boots. First of all peacekeepers had boots with laces, no sapogi at that time, and there were two models. First one is derevashki like this. They could be with buckles or without buckles like mine, and so-called облегченки. A few words about the body armor vest. The most common body armor vest was 6B5 like this, in olive color. But also there were 6B5 body armor vests in the Butan camouflage pattern, Barvikha camouflage pattern, and the camouflage used by Soviet border guards. Less often, older 6B3 body armor vest could be seen. And of course, Soviet 4-cell mag pouches, Soviet canteens, cedar duffel bags and other Soviet field gear was used, including Soviet bandages and tourniquets. And now a few words about firearms. And of course, for the international deployment, Ukrainian peacekeepers received the best weapon they could. AKS-74, AKS-74U, RPK-74 and PKM machine guns, SVD, RPG-7, Makarov pistols for officers, and bayonets 6H4 and 6H5. And now, let's see how it all looks together. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked this video, please share it with friends, subscribe to my channel, put like, comment and see you soon!
Я веду до річеньки зустрічати